You're listening to the Coloring Book Creator Podcast, episode 58. And in this episode, I'm going to be sharing with you what I feel is one of the best strategies to boost your income if you have been concerned about the high cost associated with print-on-demand books. If that's you, you definitely want to listen to this episode. Stay tuned. I was having a conversation with one of my digital planner mentor students, and we were talking about her beautiful new planner that she's just created using Lulu. I've used Lulu for many years. I'll put the link to it in the show notes if you'd like to check it out for yourself. I've used Lulu, as I said, since I got started in the book publishing game, which I'm going to talk about that in more depth in a moment, for at least probably about a good 12 years plus. And I really love the service. Now, one of the things that I like about Lulu is, not to mention the quality of their product, but the fact that they do offer the option to be able to do books in color. Amazon KDP does the same thing as well. I like them because they offer spiral bound books, which I also like to create. I'll talk about that more in a moment. Now, what inspired this podcast episode was when all was said and done, again, this is a beautiful book that she's created, and the pricing on the book, when we looked at the shipping cost, was pretty extensive. She lives in Canada. Basically, the exchange rate between U.S. and Canadian right now is not great. And Canadians, if it's a U.S.-based product or company that you're dealing with, you're paying significantly more money than you would if you were in the United States. So we have to put some context around that. And in running the numbers, I also put the book on my U.S.-based account and ran the numbers, and it's pretty significant. It's about a $7 pricing difference in just the shipping part of getting the book delivered. It's a significant price jump, but it's not unmanageable. When you're using a print-on-demand service, you're going to pay more money because you're not printing in bulk or producing in bulk. So with that in mind, when you are looking at creating your book and you're using a print-on-demand service, let's say in this case, like a Lulu, or perhaps Vervante, which is another service, and I did a podcast episode where I interviewed the owner of that company, and I'll put the link to that episode in the show notes as well, you're going to pay a higher price point for the book in and of itself, not including or shipping withstanding. So when you're paying a higher price point for a book, and I'm talking in the neighborhood of close to $20 a copy, you're going to have to get creative in how you sell that book, because you're looking at around a $20 per unit cost just for production and shipping. Now, if you are going to sell that book to the individual marketplace, you're looking at probably around at least a $5, maybe $10 plus increase in price in order to have any kind of profitability on the product. Now, when I got started with the Coloring Book Creator, and even before I even created that, I had a community I created, a paid community called my Coloring Club, where we got together once a week on Wednesdays and we color for an hour or so. It was kind of based on the idea of like a knitting circle or a painting club circle. That's where the inspiration came from for it. Now, as a part of that program, I created a spiral-bound coloring book that had inspirational quotes in it, planner pages and journal pages inside of it. And I offered that book in conjunction with that membership community that I created. The book in and of itself, with shipping and everything, would have roughly been in the neighborhood of around $30. And quite frankly, I didn't feel, based on my own experience with that particular market, that that was a sustainable price point, considering that the book would be positioned against any other coloring book that's on Amazon, and the price points on those at the highest at the time was probably going to be around $12, $13. So it didn't even occur to me to try to sell that book solo, standalone. It didn't even occur to me to do that. I immediately thought, I'm going to position the book as a value add to something else that I was creating. In this case, I decided to create or test the idea to do a membership community, a paid membership community where we got together and colored every week. And if people purchased the annual plan, I would give them the book. And that's how I sold that project. I'm saying it to say across the board that in the nonfiction space, authors are never just selling books by themselves. They're not relying on their sole income revenue generation source coming from just the sale of books. Typically, never. In the nonfiction space, the book is always positioned as either a quote unquote entry level point. Some might call a lead magnet. Some might look at it as, again, that entry level point into their ecosystem, because the back end is where the income is generated, either through courses or workshops or live events or online communities, membership communities, coaching programs, or what have you. That's always where the income is generated. It is never straight from book sales. And again, I've been in and around the publishing game, honestly, for about 30 years. And I've always seen it that way. The book is always a value add. It is never the 100% sole source of income generation. So for those of us who are in the, I'd call creative book market, book creation and publishing space, i.e. journals, planners, coloring books, typically what I have seen is that a lot of creators really don't focus on any of that. They focus strictly on creating the book for the book creation's sake, putting the book up on, let's say, Amazon, and just relying on sales coming from people finding the book on Amazon organically. And that's where the income is generated. Trust me when I say I am not negating that model. I think it is a part of your income generation portfolio. It shouldn't be, in my opinion, the sole thing or the only thing that you're relying on or doing. Another strong opinion I have about the Amazon positioning of this genre of books is that it's a volume play, meaning if I have a lot of books in the marketplace, that I will sell something, hopefully every day, so that there's some income generated every day. And the profit margin on the books that you sell on that platform run in the neighborhood of around the $3 a range, which means that if you want to make, let's say, $3,000 a month, you're going to have to sell 1,000 copies of books, not just one book, but multiple titles. Now, let me also say something here, and I want to be clear about it. If that's the model that works best for you and your lifestyle, your personality, and so on and so forth, and you really don't want to deal with people, then that's fine. Go for that. I am by no means saying don't do that. But if you are trying to generate income faster, have more control over who you're working with, have more opportunity to get to know your customers a lot better, like develop relationships with them, get to know who they are, and so that you can create not just additional books, but additional opportunities and what I like to call experiences to work with you, strongly consider following the model that, again, I would venture to say that 95% of all nonfiction book creators do in any space, not just the coloring book, planner, journal market, especially around entrepreneurship, business, that kind of thing. It can be around health, relationships, whatever. If it's in the nonfiction space, authors in this genre are what they are creating is what they call their back end. It's the book leads to something else. It leads to some kind of an experience, either live in person and or online. And that's where the income is generated. The book in and of itself is the entry level point. It's the way that people have that tangible, literally, if it's a physical book, that tactile physical experience with you and your message and your brand. One of the things I always say to my coloring book creator and planner students is carry your book with you all the time. I personally feel very strongly about this, that the world respects books and respects creators of books. Not everyone, but for the most part, we do. You're looked at differently when you say you're an author. One of the first things I say to my member students all the time is be very upfront about your identity. If you published a book, you're an author. And you should always identify yourself that way because it automatically prompts the question from people, oh, what's the name of your book? Which, of course, gives you the opportunity to then talk about it, to share it. So carry your books around with you. Let people know that there are other opportunities out there for them to connect with you and invite them into your ecosystem, starting with your email list, which then gets them onto your social media platforms where you can deepen the relationship, but have something else that you are developing. It could be a one-time workshop. It could be a workshop series. It could be a longer course. It could be an online community, which is what I did. It doesn't have to be some massive fleshed out thing with all these modules and tons of videos and handouts and all of that. It doesn't have to be any of that to start with. The reason why I keep circling back to identity and why that's so important is because people are connecting with you. Something that I also say all the time to my mentor students is it's not about the book. It's about who you become as a result of creating the book. I was far more interested in connecting with my customers in a more personal and direct way than just allowing my book to be a passive income source that was just living on a website that I hope maybe possibly someday someone might stumble across it and buy it. And I feel like that is the massive missed opportunity that a lot of authors in this genre are relying on, even if the book is selling well. And of course, selling well is all relative to whoever you're asking. Even if you're selling one copy a day, what's the other things that you're offering? Or do you have other books available? Do you have other ways that people can work with you, connect with you, experience with you? Circling back to my mentor student I was talking about at the top of the podcast, this book that was made is a beautiful book, but it's also full color throughout the entire book. So that in and of itself, I don't care who you're using, is going to also significantly increase the price of the book because typically most books are color covers on the outside, black and white on the inside, which impacts the base price before markup, before retail. So a personal choice that was decided because she has a digital copy of a digital planner. She's also done a color version of it in physical print. So the price is going to have to be higher because it's a color book. That's just a given, regardless of whether or not you use a one-off print-on-demand service like a Lulu, for an example, or you go with a local printer in your area and have a book printed. If you're doing all color, the price is going to be higher, period. That's just a given. So these are some of the suggestions that I gave in order to help couch the pricing of a one-off print-on-demand book, full color, before retail, coupled with the fact that the shipping of it, because of the exchange rate, actually was more than the cost to print the book. So I get it. It basically more than doubles the price of the book. I suggest it. Bundle the digital iteration of it with the physical iteration of the book. That in of itself is a value add. And then sell it as a bundle, not just sell the book standalone. The second thing I suggested was creating some kind of a course. It can be a mini course. It can be a workshop. It can be a workshop series. The other option is to create a paid community, which is what I did. You can start off at like $10 up to $100 a month. It depends upon the genre and the audience. But that is around, on average, what most membership communities are charging. Now, again, what's going to make that a sustainable model is how well you connect, who you're bringing into the community, what the subject of it is, how you're making people feel when they come on board, and do they feel engaged, that this is a necessity, something that they want to keep as a part of their life. And will keep them paying for the community to be a part of it. So the book is the entry level point. They buy the book, but they stay for the community. That's the best way to position that. So again, I'm talking consistently here about positioning. It's all about positioning, not just here is my book. Oh, and could you give me $35 for this or $40 for this? If you're just selling the book as a commodity in and of itself, and you're positioning it from the place of just pricing, then you're setting the tone for people who are looking at your product based on price. And whenever you're setting your product up in the marketplace based on price, you're always going to be playing a losing game. I don't care what you're selling, because people will always be looking for what? The lower price, if that's the way you're positioning the product. Now, with that said, there are millions and millions of people out there that price is not the primary focus. It's not even on the table for some. Most of us will pay almost anything for something that we find that we highly value and that we deeply feel we want and or need. Price is secondary. So again, this goes back to messaging. This goes back to positioning. This goes back to how you talk about your product, not just the product, but the benefits that the person who is potentially purchasing it is going to get as a result of acquiring the product. So when you're talking about your project, or you're creating your project, or you're creating the back end, the ecosystem that complements the book, and you're creating these, what I call experiences, people are no longer thinking, oh, I'm paying $30 for a book. They're thinking, oh, I get to be in this club, or I get to join her in this course or in this program. And that is say $97 or $100, whatever, let's say $97. And the book is rolled into that price point. So they're not paying for the book separately, but you can bundle it with that. And that then becomes less of an issue price point wise, because they're getting the book as a part of it. You're still selling a book, but you also are adding on another experience. For an example, you could do like a 3-day challenge, which are very popular right now. You could do a 3-day challenge. I did that. I've done that several times. I've done challenges, and the book was a part of the curriculum, and I gave them that. I see that in the marketplace now more and more and more. So again, people are not just in the nonfiction space. People who are making significant income are not focused on just selling a book. It's not about the book. It's about the experience that you create around the book. Because again, if you commodify the book as its standalone asset, it is only valuable to the receiver of that book as long as they are reminding themselves to engage with it. By having some kind of a community and experience of some sort to go along with it, it's that reminder. Oh, yes, I invested in this. Oh, yes, I need to be using this. Oh, yes, I want to be getting more from this. I have questions around this subject. Is there a place that I can go to ask questions and hang out and just get more support? The support, the experience is what you are selling, not just the book. So if you are in this space and you're creating, I would say no matter where you are in the journey, but if you are in the process of creating your first book, say it a journal planner, what have you, maybe with coloring pages in it, whatever you're thinking about doing, really start think beyond the physical product. Think beyond that. Think about, how can I create an experience around this product that I can significantly increase the price point and roll the book into that price point. Therefore, the price point of the book is not the front loader. It's not the driving force behind how you are positioning it. Positioning is everything. And again, this circles back to, as something I say all the time to my member students as well, is we got to be willing to get in front of it. We've got to be willing to get in front of our books. The people who make money in the book nonfiction publishing game are always the face of the brand. The book is one of the things that people get to walk away with as a result of that engagement with you as the person. So again, you have the choice. You can choose to create your books, put them on a platform like an Amazon or your own website, and just let them be there. If people find them, great, and buy them, great. If it provides you with some extra side money, perfect. Do that. I suggest do it anyway. just because it can be a secondary or a third income stream. But if you are looking at higher price points for production and unit cost of the book, you're going to have to bundle it some kind of way. You're going to have to repackage it some kind of way and then increase the price point to match that experience and then envelope the book into that experience. All right. So again, I'm going to leave some links to some resources in the show notes for you. And I would love to hear your thoughts about this after you listen to this episode. I will also put a link to my free Facebook group community, the Comic Book Creator Club. And I'd love to get your thoughts about this. Maybe your book idea, what you're thinking about creating. If you have books already out there, perhaps what could that next level experience be? It could be a membership community. It could be a course or a workshop or some derivative thereof. It could be a combination of those things. So if you want to, get some ideas around that, again, I'd love to hear them inside of the group. I will put the link also here inside the show notes as well. One last thing before I wrap it up. I don't assume to or imply that anyone listening to this episode has any sort of particular religious affiliation or anything of that nature, so I don't even want to infer that. But I will say, no matter where you are, in the case of this particular individual I was speaking about, I know that she has a strong faith. And I said to her at the end of the day, I says, pray about it. So for you listening, no matter where you are, if you're a person, faith, then pray about it or meditate about it, journal about it. And I mean what I'm saying by that. I mean, what's the next steps? What's the best direction to take with this project that I've created? And see what comes to you. Again, a lot of times we get too close to things, so it's hard for us to get perspective. So go for a walk. Go get some air, journal about it. Like I said, pray about it, meditate about it, whatever you need to do in order to help get some perspective about how can I create something that's unique and special that coincides with this book project that I've poured my heart, my energy into, so that it can do what it was intended to do, which is to inspire, motivate, and help more people. With that said, this is Rodney Washington, your host, signing off, and I'll see you on the next episode.